make some heat.
It's a new place, moving through the forest. See the light through the trees and we moving toward it. By the lake where we eat, I'm interviewing corporate. Pray to God, then I plan it, now you're boo in orbit. Load the car up, we can travel to a new resort. Moon walking on them, tell the truth, listen, you adore it. Finally done with paying rent, I could do a mortgage. You don't hustle for your kids, who you do it for? Never going back to being broken, get her under their control again. We're struggling to hold it in. If somebody told you you won't make it to your goals, even if they say it's a joke, move away from them and go. Too many hate because the truth is they just really getting old. And they jealous of the opportunities you have known. Married to the game, I just had to let you know. To be the Pac-Man, had to lose a few goals.
I know
it's lonely, and you wanna go back. Love shouldn't control you, and they should know that. Do what you wanna do. Hope we can go back to how we used to be.
no front, don't
But you
mess.
know where home at. You know where home is. You know where home at. You know where home is. Know where home is. You know where home at. Wish we could go back. You know where I put my faith in little rings of silver and of gold. Please tell me how this new degree is finna save my soul, or how this 9 to 5 is gonna hold me if I'm lonely. Still the only one who know me better than my homie.
I know we
Could go back. I know we'll go back. Love should control you, and they should know that. Hope we can go back. Big shout out to Lil Frank,
What's up, gang? Man, the title of this episode is messed up. That was Home At by me, Nave No Bleak, and it is available on Bandcamp NN517. Got a lot to talk about. I have started doing these like once a month, and I just put a bunch of topics into the episode because I know I'm not gonna have time. A lot's been happening. Wiz and Currency, great album. I'm working on getting through that now. You got 50 T.I. You got Trump and this everything that's going on with Iran social media campaign. We're just gonna talk about it all. I heard somebody say, "Hey, are you just going to your Twitter when you're podcasting?" Yes, with everything that's going on, my timeline is really one of the only ways that I can keep track of what's going on. So if you're watching, we're headed over to my Twitter. First and foremost, Wiz and Currency, have to give them kudos, congratulations. Their album Ruthless Records for Drop Tops is out, dropped at midnight. Today is Thursday, April 2nd. I hope everyone's doing well. We'll get into introductions in a minute, but I have to talk about this because from J. Cole to Drake to Mos Def to a lot of artists, we are seeing industry influence ruin their branding. We're going to talk about J. Cole and his media antics and get into some J. Cole lyrics probably on another show that I view are kind of problematic. We're going to talk about Mossad influence. I don't have time to sugarcoat things. Malcolm X was right. You cannot trust a lot of these entertainers. They are puppets for racists, anti-hip-hop sentiments, and I believe the Mossad. We will get into that. Mossad meaning Israeli intelligence. Which I don't know if they're going to flag this episode or not, but I don't have time to sugarcoat, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have time. Wiz and Currency, though, and I will get into what I believe sort of caused some of these new drops. from Wiz and Currency, but they did not water down their products. For those of you who have not been tuning in, Wiz and Currency have both been dropping songs. They're definitely for people who are fans of smoking, fans of greenery. But as far as product, as a Wiz and Currency fan, meaning I listen to both of their projects, I actually might listen to Wiz Khalifa a little bit more than Currency right now. But Currency's last project, I think it was Everything Everywhere, I think it was. He's really stepped it up with his rapping too. And people forget Currency was on the Carter too. Like, he's got a lot of history involved. We'll talk about hip hop history too. There's so many topics. The ADHD is strong with this episode, so I hope I'm not all over the place. But it is good to hear artists that I grew up listening to still putting out quality music and representing their brand in a way that doesn't seem to have degraded it. How Fly was a project that I lived to. There are certain projects that I've lived to. Drake Take Care was one of those. How Fly, Cushion OJ, for me, Master Ace Disposable Arts. There are some projects that I just lived to. And sometimes as you listen to music, as time goes on, as we saw with Lupe Fiasco, with Lasers, as the labels, which I believe are very racist and anti-black and don't want great music to get put out sometimes. When labels and all these other influences get involved, the quality can degrade. And as someone who has been, someone who studies Wiz Khalifa and Currency's writing or music, there are times when live in concert that didn't exactly have the same feel as How Fly. What was the other one? 2009. That intro, certain elements, they didn't really match up with previous work. And it was really, really good to hear Wiz and Currency get in the studio and produce product that lines up with, when you're waking up in the morning. I was in high school, waking up in the morning, you get a glass of orange juice. And I probably wasn't supposed to be. But, you experience the album that way, It was great to hear young me, like, be happy at this music. It's like, oh, y'all didn't fall off. Speaking of falling off, we have to talk about J. Cole. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I have to give a minute to salute Currency and Wiz. I'm seeing that this is like part one. So I am really hoping that this is another drop that we will be getting from them. Let me cut this volume down a little bit. Check. All right. I really am hoping that they keep this level of quality for a while, because this is exactly what I'm looking for from the two of them. What else we got here? Someone discovered another instance of cheese violence. Extra cheese, please. If you're watching, we are looking at, what are we looking at here? Some sort of fried cheese product. Me personally, I'm getting back into pizza. I've been on a real pizza kick lately. Little Caesars. They got, what did I get? I got a half mushroom. It was mushroom on everything. Half pepperoni. It was, okay, I got it. It was mushroom and pineapple on everything. Half pepperoni, half bacon is what it was. And I'm lactose intolerant. I'm lactose intolerant. So I really can't play around with some of that stuff. But cheese, come on. I've been avoiding it. I haven't had ice cream in forever. Shout out to all my lactose intolerant people who are watching images like this, or who see people eating pizza and you can just go outside and not have any issues. Man, we have to live a different way. In high school, if I had a bowl of cereal, I might not be coming into school. You know, in life, if you got a job, you can't just chug a glass of milk before you go on your morning commute. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Dating, you know, I'm stepping back into the dating scene slowly but surely, and you got to let people know, hey, we can go out, but if you want to go to an Italian restaurant and do Alfredo, if you want to get ice cream, anything like that, I will have to leave. I'll be polite about it. I'll be like, oh yeah, this is so great. But eventually you'll hear, oh, my stomach will start to go, and I'll have to leave. It's a lifestyle. So shout out to y'all who can experience extra cheese without having to deal with the consequences, you know? Pigeons and Planes, Earl Sweatshirt. Okay, so we're gonna get back to this, but what actually let's see. Pigeons and Planes asked Earl Sweatshirt about real hip hop fans who expect artists like him and Mike to always approach music in a very traditional way. So this is Earl's response. Please don't copyright me, please. Let's see what we got.
What is this like thing where culture has become just like solely like nostalgic or regurgitative, as if it's not supposed to like keep finding itself in different places, like that spirit of hip hop or whatever. And we have that. That's what I'm saying. As a person that's been a part of it, that's existed in different iterations over different generations now, I know when it's around. I know when that creative spirit is around, and that's what's at the heart of it. It's not important
The creative spirit.
what the genre is. It's about that constant practice of creating and communicating with each other. There's a debate between
Okay, this part was pretty good.
Mtume and like Stanley Crouch, the jazz critic. They were talking about like Miles Davis, and Crouch was talking about how Miles had like, I guess, absconded from the path of like traditional jazz when he started involving like electronic instruments. And Mtume just like eviscerated this nigga from every single possible angle about like what is this like rejection of like technology. And he's like, if it's a legitimate rebuking of technology, then take the lights out your house. We eating candlelight dinner tonight, because what the fuck are we talking about?
All right, so this I think is a great thing to highlight before we talk about J. Cole, because I think in hip hop, especially now, there really is something going on that requires those of us who actually write the music to speak out. Hip hop, in my mind, for a very long time, ever since labels really got involved, has been colonized. I don't have time to mince words. And I have to make it clear, I believe that hip hop now is for everyone. But what happens when something gets colonized is people step in, trample over the paths and practices and habits that have happened for years, which in this case in hip hop, I believe is the elements of hip hop. Do you know your elements, by the way? I'm seeing people run around saying you're still talking about the elements. That's what Earl is describing, is the tension. My chat GPT uses that word a lot. Whenever there's some nonsense going on, it'll say tension. The tension between the views of the mainstream consumer or the critic of hip hop and the artist. And Earl is describing it from a jazz perspective, but I'll try to say it from how I see it. In the NBA, there are always people coaching from the stands who have never played the game or who maybe dribbled a couple of times, but just weren't good at the sport. And so they commentate. But it doesn't change the rules. And I think what's happening right now is because there is no central body to represent the elements and the culture and the history of hip hop, labels are able to pick these artists who really don't come from the culture, some of them who are raised in anti-black and anti-hip-hop households, and they install them as these voices of the culture. Then later you find out, oh, you're not even a real rapper. And they have these views like J. Cole with this cultural thing. He's talking about how culture is just a buzzword now because the internet says so, essentially. And after he made all this money off the culture and made all this money off of saying he's the best rapper, now he even swore to God he was the best rapper. I have that on my page. He swore to God he was the best rapper. He just did an interview like, oh, y'all really believed it? There is a tension between the true lovers of the art and creators of the art and these sort of casual fans who feel so entitled through these parasocial relationships that they can just make the rules. And I think now Earl shed a lot of light on it. It happens in almost every arena. The critics say these things like they make the rules, and the artists, the people, not even just artists, the people who love the culture are always speaking up, because the way, I use the word colonization on purpose, the way colonization works is they have to trample everything, erase the history, erase the traditions, and then they sort of install their own watered down, very negative version. And I think that they do install people, and it's good to see that Earl seems to be somebody. I should have said it before, man. I don't trust any of these entertainers. Malcolm X said it best. Don't trust any of them, and I believe it. I believe they are all puppets for racist labels or people pushing the occult in some way. But Earl is speaking. Earl is somebody whose perspective on hip hop I trust, because he, from a young age, was involved in trying to work with words. His father, famous poet, he's dedicated to the craft of artistry and putting words together. I don't view myself as a rapper. I view myself as a writer and a poet who happens to use music as my medium. So my peers are not Lil So-and-so, it's Langston Hughes. So I'm somebody where I have a reverence for this thing of ours that we call hip hop, for the elements. And right now I feel like J. Cole, Drake, and some of these people that have been installed as the big three, Kendrick too, they are using their platforms to sort of degrade the culture in some way, especially what J. Cole is doing. So shout out to Earl for speaking on this conflict between the critic and the artist. He's speaking on it, but they keep coming up with these critiques. So in this situation, it was because someone was using electronic sounds in jazz. And it's always someone going, you're going against the rules. When Jesus was walking around in the story, healing people on the Sabbath, they were like, oh, you're healing people. That's against the rules. And it's usually the people who are in the stands. It's usually the people who are agreeing with J. Cole and saying, if you see a Ville nigga lock your car, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good to say. Or, yeah, the culture is just a buzzword. The people who are agreeing with some of these political statements from Trump, yeah, just start wars with whoever, America. It's like, bruh, you don't believe in the basics of what this country is founded on. I mean, they didn't really believe it either, but it's supposed to be all men are equal. We're not supposed to be going around. If you care about the good of the country, the nation, we're not supposed to be going around and doing that. If you really love hip hop, you shouldn't just be listening.
What is this like
to
thing where
automatically
culture
criticize.
has become just like solely
If you really love hip hop, you shouldn't really just be listening to criticize. If you really love jazz, you shouldn't just be listening to criticize. And I think that what's happening right now is we have so many voices. We have so many voices in hip hop media who never rapped, who never wrote, who never made a beat, who never did any, never was part of a street team, none of that stuff. That they are speaking up and they're promoting it, so people get this idea this is what hip hop's about. Shout out to Earl for speaking on that. I could talk about that for a lot because it irks me. As someone who was running around doing graffiti, as someone who was ciphering in the cold, these people ain't never ciphered in the cold. You know what I'm saying? Looking around, people might have had stuff on them they might not have, shouldn't have had, and we looking around and Police are circling, wondering what we doing, standing around rapping in the cold. Man, I come from that. I come from actual hip hop. So shout out to Earl for at least trying to describe this strange occurrence that's happening between critics and artists. And I've yapped so long that I got to do a music break. So we're going to do a music break. We will BRB. There's no way I'm going to get through all these topics. There's no way I'm going to get through all these topics, but we will be right back, and I'm going to play another song from my personal library, something that I'm working on right now called Somnambulism. It means sleepwalking. Now be easy, because this is not mixed all the way. But yeah, you are tuned into the Undrground Podcast. I am your host, Nave Nobleak. Let's take a music break. When the music, there it goes. Well, that ain't soap, I'll tell you that. They ain't see it, they ain't have the vision. Long trips overnight, somnambulism. If you hurting anybody, that's a bad religion. Gotta use your mind to avoid making bad decisions. They ain't see it, they ain't had a vision. Long trips overnight, somnambulism. If you hurting anybody, that's a bad religion. Gotta use your mind to avoid making bad decisions. Couple more hours and I'm done with this shift. Couple more hours and my own people tried to end me, so you know I'm great. Carried the betrayal all on my own, I had to shoulder weight. Presidential flow, you think I wrote this in a motorcade? Said all men were equal, they ignoring it for those enslaved. Don't need a chain that's all icy like a frozen lake. I need ice to go leave Minnesota, plus I'm noticing there's no coverage on social media being shown lately. These smartphones are programming us with no cable. Work on my book and read the news from the United Nations. Worst human act, they now saying it's the slave trade. And back here in the States, they are still hating. Separate before you see a cell, that's mitosis, ain't it? Pick up the phone, she don't ignore me and do what I say. Chasing money even if it try to run away. Adventure time, I say I'm Finn, but I'm a dog like Jake. They ain't let us eat at the beginning, so get off my plate. She let the mushrooms finish before she sliced the steak. Slightly pink in the middle like where I'm diving later. Michigan get crazy in the winter, word to sliding brakes. You never had to go and do a drop. Driving by a lake at almost 1 o'clock where ain't no light, so you can't navigate. John the Baptist almost wound up chilling in the lake. I was bored at the house, hit the interstate. She gon' throw it on the couch like a pillow, pay attention, I can show you how to get 300 in a day. DoorDash, FanDuel, flip it till you're straight. Get on Reddit selling verses like a brick of yay. Sold a CD for like 10 out by the Wendy's. Ayy, got my degree, I'm dropping in, I'm getting Frito-Lays. Renovate the place and then I flip it, buying real estate. I don't get the hate. If you look at how it went, you was in the way. I'm protective of my kid, I don't really play. You ain't support them court dates, I'ma think you fake. I'ma get you straight. Food stamps, it was lit, I was not ashamed. She had static with her mama over pocket change. I don't hunger for them kind of games, I'm not a Mockingjay. They ain't see it, they ain't have the vision. Long trips overnight, somnambulism. If you hurting anybody, that's a bad religion. Gotta use your mind to avoid making bad decisions. They ain't see it, they ain't had a vision. Long trips overnight, somnambulism. If you hurting anybody, that's a bad religion. Gotta use your mind to avoid making bad decisions. All right, that was Somnambulism from me. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with that for sure, but it is my attempt to continue to create. I want to hit a refresh on this because there is a topic that I didn't cover that I feel is important. And I think the world's reaction to it is also very important. So I don't want to, I would be remiss if I didn't speak on the United Nations and their vote And mainstream America or the world's reaction. The United Nations has voted to recognize the slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. And they have also called for reparations to the countries impacted. The UK, France, and other European Union member states abstained, while the US, Israel, and Argentina opposed the proposal. So the United Nations has recognized the slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. And I want to click the comments. Shout out to all my black people who have been living in this nightmare where white America and European America consistently singles you out and then tells you that it is not a big deal. Like I said, I don't have time to mince words. America has been taken over and is suffering directly because of white incompetence. And I don't have time to mince words. And maybe it's good the comments didn't load. The comments are full of people, white people, saying that it is not that big of a deal, saying that we should get credit for ending slavery, making all kinds of jokes. And this is the problem. Mainstream whites have to stand up to their racist cousins, friends, uncles, and parents. And until they do, grandparents especially, until they do, the rest of us are being held hostage. Yes, that also includes non-racist whites. There was never a seminar. There was never a healing racism program that was put out to address how in the world you end up lynching people at picnics, practicing ritualistic cannibalism on slaves, how you end up with segregation that was recently just ended, like 60 years ago, but I heard they're trying to bring things back. How do you ignore promising people 40 acres and a mule, which would have allowed them to start cities and buy properties? And how do you ignore the fact that black people in some places had to deal with the KKK burning crosses? Malcolm X's father was killed due to speaking up and saying black people should separate, like Marcus Garvey said, and I think we should get back to that to some degree. How do you ignore Tulsa? It is a generational thing that has been passed down, and I don't want to call it a mental illness, but it is a way of viewing things. Much like omerta has been passed down from the mafia to the black community through music and through marketing, which we'll get to. I think they gave everybody something. But racism and the cruelty and the brutality and the purposeful sabotage that's associated, the deflection, the narcissism, the bullying associated with it, I believe is one of the leading causes of human suffering in this world. In America, segregation was legal during my grandparents' age. My mother was one of the first black students to integrate into all white schools. And today, their descendants are saying that DEI, a practice used to attempt to try to balance those wrongs. Generations of white Americans allowed to buy property and live in relative peace while black people were brutalized and not even allowed to eat inside restaurants, drink at fountains, and swim in the same pools. Today they are saying that DEI is wrong because it is discrimination. So it's crazy because they are intelligent enough to identify discrimination, but magically their friends, family members, grandparents, none of them, they can't see any of it. They can't tell that Meemaw and Peepaw talking about those N-words taking over the neighborhood is wrong. They won't stand up to them. And that's how we get in this kind of situation. That is how you get a president that is sending children into courts without representation to deport them. That's how you get all this savagery, because when you're a racist, You have to always find an other to persecute. And what people don't understand is, yes, it can happen to poor whites as well. Everyone suffers. Everyone suffers as long as mainstreamers keep turning a blind eye to this kind of thing. We'll try to click it one more time just to see if the comments load this time. Because I want to, it's like living on the show The Walking Dead. You're surrounded by these people who look like they're thinking, feeling human beings. But as soon as someone who doesn't look like them is involved, they call themselves Christians, which is a book about Black and brown people in Egypt and Africa. Jesus, who is one of the main, the face of Christianity, would not support racism. The Bible literally says, be kind to immigrants because you are an immigrant in a foreign land. Yeah, that doesn't mean, obviously, I don't think that means you should be able to just walk into America. But the point is, so many of these people are walking around with this ridiculous notion that they're good people. And as soon as they see something to do with someone non-white, they start tripping out. Maybe I won't read the comments, but yeah, for Ramon Augusta, the world owes Britain for civilizing the world, creating the modern world, ending slavery, fighting 1-1. To them, this is funny. To them, what has been done is, quote unquote, civilizing the world. I'm not going to get too bogged down onto it, but this is something that has affected my bloodline. Like when I go outside, you can see the lingering results of these kind of things. You can see the fear. You can see when you go into the grocery store how some whites will get out of the way super, super fast. Or you see it all the time. But everyone's turning a blind eye. And I think until mainstreamers everywhere stand up to this kind of thing, until in America, all men are truly treated like they were created equal, no exceptions, we are going to keep having to deal with this because you and I, as Black people, if you are Black, can yell and scream to the rafters, hey, stop, this is evil, blah, blah, blah. But until the mainstream does something, same thing with the Civil War, all that stuff. We were sitting there going, slavery is wrong, segregation, all this stuff is horrible. And nothing really happened until the mainstream got fired up. So if you're listening right now and you want to help the movement, check one of your racist friends, family members, co-workers. Don't be one of the good ones. You know what I mean? If you Black and listening, don't be one of the good ones. You know what I mean? Shout out to them for at least recognizing what the rest of us have realized. But, it's not over until all men are treated like they're equal to me. I had to make sure I speak on that. My bad. I heard my management telling me move on. Okay, so Lil Durk has an update from prison, and there's no way we're gonna get through all this stuff today. There's just no way. But I'll try to cover as much as I can. All right, let's see if we can get this to play. If it'll work. All right, Durk. Phone call from prison, attempt to.
Yeah, I just want to give y'all just an update on my mind state. I just been reading and getting into these books, just working on my patience. I've been reading Pawns in the Game by William Gackar, Huey P. Newton, Fred Hampton, Elaine Brown, just all the revolutionaries, who've been through something and stand for something that a lot of people don't know of or forgot about. And I just been, it's just been sitting on my heart lately to just save the generation, bro. Save these kids. They don't deserve it. I'm just tired of being a pawn for the culture, entertaining and being ignorant, you know what I'm saying? I want to change the world around to being positive. I want to start with saying, like, when it comes to support, I'd be cool because, when Jay-Z went through his situation, he the people's champ. They turned their back on him. Even Drake and Kendrick, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to be the first one to just do it, you know what I'm saying? And not saying the first one to do it, but, for these kids, we got to be their heroes. You know what I'm saying? They got to look up to us in a positive way. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people ain't going to like it. If you can't make money off of it, they ain't going to like it. So I'm going to be the first one to do it. The revolutionary.
All right, so shout out to Dirk if he is really being serious about that. there are a couple of things I want to point out. Number one, he is not a pawn for the culture. It's not the culture doing it. And what I noticed him, J. Cole, and a couple other people will do is they will take the deal. They'll promote all of this stuff. They'll use the culture to get where they are. And then when they get in a jam, all of a sudden they throw it under the bus. Respectfully, Dirk, and I'm a Dirk fan. I've been listening to Dirk's music. He got some of the best storytelling in the game, but he was not a pawn for the culture. He was a willing participant in pushing the anti-black sentiment that I was talking about. And now that he's in a jam, you know, I hope he is changing his life. But here's one thing that I really want to speak on when it comes to artists like Dirk. Thug just got out of a situation too. Everyone is talking about Dirk. Nobody is talking, and it's just like growing up in Jackson. Everybody is talking about the person in the hot seat, Dirk. When I was younger, people would talk about my behavior, but nobody talks about the framework, the people around me, the OGs, the people who are supposed to steer me in the right direction, the people who are profiting off of me moving in goofy ways. No one is talking about how the label and labels in Chicago have literally been funding wars. And I think that's weird. All these people like to talk about these conspiracies when it comes to proxy wars, and they use these big words. Let's talk about how labels knew that there were gang wars happening in Chicago and poured millions of dollars into not only helping paint the pictures of it and provide the soundtrack to it. They funded a lot of this stuff. And somehow, now that these young black artists, who I do believe have to have responsibility, but now that these people who weren't exactly shown how to move right have been put on a world stage promoting their wars that they've been in their neighborhoods, now that the labels have come in and collected all the money off of it, now that they're in a jam, what's happening with the label? Too many times you see it all that we call it a crash dummy. This country is treating black artists like crash dummies. They look for these people who are living in these neighborhoods who maybe don't have the best support system or don't have the best education. And then they tell them, hey, tell your story, diss your ops. I don't even like to use the word ops, but diss them. We'll put a bag up for you to, and of course that's going to cause more bloodshed. Of course, the label has to know that this money that they're raising is going to go directly to weapons and all this stuff for the war, allegedly. You read these reports the feds drum up, and you hear artists getting on planes who the label is somehow not investigated. I think during Murder Inc. and all that stuff, they got looked into it. But my point is, instead of blaming the culture like J. Cole is trying to do, now that people are realizing, hey, you only talk about the hood in negative terms. Did you really grow up there? Hey, you got white people everywhere screaming, if you see a Ville nigga, lock your car. Isn't that anti-black? Hey, J. Cole, you're talking about peace, but you're talking about shooting people in the head too, J. Cole. That doesn't make sense. You're talking about peace, but rapping about flipping bricks. And you don't ever really talk about any street real politics. That doesn't seem real. Now J. Cole want to diss the culture. We've seen this time and time again from artists in these situations. When the heat gets on, they suddenly want to become activists and angels. And here's what I say. You should have been that from the beginning. I had to learn that growing up. Instead of pushing negativity and then trying to switch to being a positive person when they shine the lights, just be that. And we all got stories, you know. They tried to say that I was involved in, you know what I'm saying? They tried to say that I was moving around in the street a kind of way too. Crazy stories, right? We all have a past. But you're either building or destroying. I hope this is sincere from him. But we've heard this story a lot. I hope this is sincere because he's in a great position to help a lot of people based on what he's experienced. But time and time, as a Christian, time and time again, people will diss Christians, like we're soft or whatever. Pause. And then when they get in a jam, oh no, I'm actually they almost mimic us. And shout out to the Muslim community. I grew up in a Muslim household, so it ain't no diss to them. Jesus is one of the most quoted prophets in the Quran. For people trying to act like Muslims and Christians shouldn't interact. But yeah, we hear this a lot. We hear this a lot. I hope this is authentic. But we really got to start holding these artists and their labels to task before something bad happens. We have to start identifying, like with J. Cole and Drake, we have to start identifying who really is part of the culture and who is being sold to, like Jack Harlow too, Monica. We have to identify this stuff beforehand. Rick Ross said it. You have to use your mind to keep yourself out of situations. I hope this is authentic from Dirt. Not gonna lie, gang, it's a lot of bitch assness afoot. Sorry for cussing, but there is. And the Bible says in the last days, there'll be a lot of sketchiness, and I'm seeing it, man. We got to get to J. Cole. Oh, okay. Okay, we're on the way to this J. Cole topic, but introducing Pizza Hut Canada has decided to introduce a hot dog stuffed crust, which is now available for a limited time only. You know, at first glance, I go, I don't know about that. But at second glance, I can understand it. That's what I can understand it. I can understand it. Dexter's Laboratory or Courage the Cowardly Dog is the question that is up right now. Honestly, I would have to say Dexter's Lab. I don't know. I feel like the episodes on Dexter's Lab, Courage had some really good villains, but a lot of Courage's episodes were like the same. It was like scary thing, Courage trips out, screams, hits it with something, saves Muriel and Eustace. And Dexter would have, some more diverse plots. Now, watching some of those old Dexter episodes, I'm like, that might not hold up today. Some of the stuff they was doing was pretty crazy. Some of the innuendos in the Dexter episodes were pretty weird. I'm not gonna lie to you. When the parents were playing Twister, that was weird. But I would pick Dexter. All right, we already talked about Wiz. I have to get to this J. Cole situation. Okay. Kendrick said, "You hate me, don't you? You hate my people. Your plan is to terminate my culture. You're effing evil." We're getting into it. He said that on To Pimp a Butterfly. Echo Magazine and Dave Chappelle collaborating back in the day is fire. Shout out to Echo. Just things of the culture. If you're watching, I really want people to get knowledgeable of the culture. Echo and their game Getting Up. Great Contents Under Pressure. Great part of hip hop history. We're going to get to J. Cole, I promise. But we got to show some love here too. Shout out to this illustrator. Final Fantasy, I believe. I don't know if it's going to let me highlight it, but this is also, we celebrate the arts here. We celebrate the arts, man. I always wanted to play a Final Fantasy game that actually looked like this. I always thought that'd be cool. Here we go. Yoshitaka Anamo is the name. So for those of you listening, definitely check the screen out because this is we celebrate art here, not just music. We celebrate art. I would love to play a Final Fantasy game that is in this art style, and we got another music break coming up, so I'm gonna have to skip some. Growing up is another quote. Growing up is realizing everything you liked at 13 was dope. Speaking of, this new game is on the way, but we have to get to J. Cole. Because I don't have a ton of time today, but like I said, there's so many topics on here. Rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle passed away March 31st, 2019. For people hating on Nipsey Hussle taught me how to sell a mixtape for $100. That Proud to Pay program, you see L.A. Russell copying that these days, even though he sort of ran that into the ground. I think a lot of people speak on hip hop without actually knowing anything about it. Okay, so where's this? Here we go. All right, J. Cole has been on a press run since the fall off. And, you know, as I was listening to the fall off, I noticed some discrepancies, and I mentioned them before. I noticed that he was saying, if you see a veiled nigga, lock your car, with mainly a white audience. I noticed that he was talking about peace, but he was talking about shooting people, which was strange. I noticed that every time he referenced the hood or anything that had to do with like Black community, he would say things like, we have to do better. And but he would always talk about it in almost a negative sense. And I was like, man, sometimes J. Cole raps like a racist white person. How does that happen? Someone so intelligent. And then he started doing his rollout with the Civic, and people talked about how it was disingenuous, and people talked about how it wasn't authentic. And as someone who, you know, I probably should have said this at the beginning, I'm not just some random person. I've been writing music for over 10 years. I was signed, had indie deals, was signed, had you know, industry events, people trying to fly me to Atlanta, over 300 songs. I'm currently writing music. So my point is, I'm not DJ Akademiks over here. Shout out to Ak and what he does, but I'm not an outsider speaking on this stuff. I'm someone who grew up in the culture, is my point. I'm someone who is active, ran a label, understands, have talked to execs. Like, I've talked to Sharon from marketing. You know what I'm saying? So you see these discrepancies, but I've always sided with Malcolm on the issue. Like I said, I feel like that a lot of these artists are kind of puppets for racist labels who are actually anti-hip-hop and anti-Black. And even though I knew that, I still looked at Cole like, all right, you love the culture enough that you're not gonna, that you actually like it. Listening to Kanye talk about how he was almost cosplaying as a backpacker, that made me realize, you know, J. Cole, ironically, False Prophets made me realize, oh, they're not just getting ghostwriters. There are artists that have been put into this game that hate hip hop and are using it, but their culture is not Black culture. They don't like Black culture. They look and sound and talk and rap like they are these pro-Black revolutionaries who are socially conscious, but they are really on some house Negro stuff. They're really trying their hardest to tear down the culture, which is why that Kendrick quote is relevant. So I've been hearing this narrative for a long time, since Charles Hamilton back in the day was doing his thing. If you don't know who that is, you got to look him up. But he was saying Cole was part of a batch of artists who was brought in and who was essentially created to sound, look, and act conscious, but to lead people in a different direction. Much like they say NWA, Niggas with Attitude, was created to do the same thing for Public Enemy. And interviews like this, and they really highlight that. So I don't want to talk too much, but I had to give the framework. Here's the interview.
But the culture, when people say this word culture, you know what I'm saying? Because that's just become
a buzzword.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
empty
exactly.
buzzword.
The culture this, the culture that. I'm like, you know the swag and all that, all of the slang, the dances, these are things that we consider culture coming up.
Yes.
That comes from those dudes.
Yes, it does.
The young, I mean, you know, I don't want to name names. But, you know, it comes from a lot of these young guys. You know what I mean? That I think the elitists tend to make fun of. But I'm like, but they're the lit ones.
Yeah.
They're the ones that's creating all of this, whatever that is, 100%. Right? That the entire world is now being infected with. So the swag comes from those guys. So when you say everybody has something to offer, I look at that. I look at what Future brought in the game. I'm like, Future, one of the coolest cats ever. Yeah. He one of the flyest dudes ever. And everybody took something from Future. From Future.
Yep.
So I just think this whole culture thing, it comes from this sort of, you know, I don't want to say subset or niche online sort of presence on hip hop, but I just think that word is such a broad and, you know what I mean? It's such a, well, they've minimalized.
It's an empty word now.
Yeah, it is.
It used to mean something. Now it's just a buzzword that don't mean nothing. And actually what y'all are speaking about is bought and paid by paid campaigns or motherfucking bots or
we gonna have to cut some out.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Nah, for sure. Or just the algorithm.
Yes.
Even if it's not paid, it's like, yo, the algorithm is, so it's like the word culture is like, yo, it hurts me to see, but it's like, yo, the second, you know, slang used to mean something. Like, yo, like.
All right, so one of the first things I got from this, as somebody who has a degree in language and all this stuff, is these guys are not really talking about much. To me, I call this fake intellectualism. You are saying big words and you're commenting on these things, but if someone who actually understands English is listening, you're actually kind of almost babbling. They're talking about the culture, but they're referencing future. And from what I gather, the person is saying the culture comes from these people that elitists look down on. And then J. Cole starts to talk about how the culture is a buzzword now, and it hurts him to say, and how the internet has turned it into a buzzword. And here's what I respond to. The internet don't define culture, and it is not a buzzword just because you are currently getting exposed for not knowing what it is. So let me be clear. The culture we're talking about is Black culture / hip hop culture, which was created by Black Americans in the Bronx, New York. Party scene, and then began to describe its environment. The culture is the elements of hip hop. That's what we're talking about. It is a concrete thing. So anyone talking about the culture as this vague thing, number one, is a red flag, because it is, do you know your elements? What are the 5 elements of hip hop? Before I say it, can anyone say it? The culture is DJing, MCing or rapping, graffiti or art, dance, used to be breaking back in the day, and knowledge. Knowledge of the game and knowledge of self. It is not some abstract thing. Now, you can roll fashion under the art section. They were tagging up shirts and stuff. That's art. That is the culture. And as a writer and someone who participated in it, I think that it is one of the most monstrous things that you can do, to use your platform to tell the world that the culture is simply a buzzword because the internet says. No. The culture is a specific set of things. And I thank God that they created the elements so that those of us who really are part of this thing, even as just media, let's say you don't write, but those of us who are really part of this thing can identify when there are frauds. The way that J. Cole talks about the culture doesn't just seem like somebody who's tired. The way he talks to me sounds like somebody who didn't really have love for it in the first place. And one thing that I found very interesting, let me see if I can find it. Kendrick used the fact that J. Cole did not have handshakes as a diss. Look at that. Look at Eris. To J. Cole, he said or to Drake, you never had any handshakes with your friends. J. Cole on this OFG song that he just put out, I'm trying to find it. He just said, I don't have handshakes. I don't have time to listen or to figure out these handshakes. But he said it as like, oh, look, I'm being grown. To me, J. Cole has constantly, and Drake, they have been giving hints that they really don't love the culture like that, and that they were actually installed. And they've been doing it for a while. I can't find it. I have so much stuff on here that is tough for me to find. But yeah, if you listen to the way J. Cole talks, he don't sound like somebody who has a genuine love for the culture. And you can see when it comes to the fans, the same thing, that we have been infiltrated by mainstreamers who really hate Black culture, but they cling to hip hop because it's cool. That's why you see people now, look, all these sheep are now running around talking about, oh yeah, man. Yeah, it is isn't that painting is crazy. Lake Town by artist W1LMUTTART. Mud art. And ironically, I feel like this painting kind of describes what I'm talking about. There's this thing lurking under the surface of hip hop, like this image under this lake. If you guys aren't watching on visually, it's the image of this very big creature in a small lake, and the creature's laying down at the bottom of the lake, and their hand is it looks like they're almost trying to get out. And the citizens of the lake don't seem to notice. There has been this thing lurking beyond the surface of hip hop for quite some time. And I believe it's been lurking beyond it's been lurking behind the scenes in the fabric of mainstream society as well. And it is this genuine disdain for Black culture, but this want to use it. I call it colonization, because colonization means, oh, we love this plant. We love this, the Pilgrims. We love this land, but we want to turn it into what we want. So we're going to change the history and change the definitions. No. No, J. Cole. No, Jay-Z, if Jay-Z is behind this as well, because I saw he's been on a press run. It's interesting that they both stepped out at the same time, and they both kind of made themselves look a little obtuse. God bless them. But yeah, no, J. Cole. The culture is not a buzzword. The culture is not a buzzword just because the internet says it. The culture is the 5 elements, and people have died to protect it. And you yourself, J. Cole, have benefited and made millions off making it seem like you cared about the culture. There's another interview clip where he says, man, I can't believe people actually believed that I thought I was the best. That was one of the things J. Cole said, man, I put on the cape and I rap, and I can't believe people actually thought I was the best rapper of all time. People believed that I believed it. No, J. Cole, you said it. I'm trying to find the lyric. And maybe it's because my replies aren't showing up. But no, you swear to God, bro. That's me just promoting my music. This is one. If you're making excuses for how J. Cole's moving, I automatically don't trust you. And I really mean this. It's an indicator, like voting for Trump, saying Drake won versus Kendrick. You have to ignore too much to come to that conclusion. I really believe that racism, anti-Black sentiment, mental issues, whatever, people have shared triggers for these things. So it could be an indicator of something, like a tick. If you notice someone has like a twitch or something they do when you're playing cards, they could be bluffing or something. I think that if people are blind, if you run into someone who is blindly defending Drake, you have to skip over the fact that he did bite a lot of styles from people, man. He did. He really actually did. He did move weird with underage or younger women. He did post himself in an explicit manner on a platform where he knew kids were on. He did do that. He did hate on his exes in their music, and he did talk to different women, and he did sue. He sued. Some things, if you defend them blindly, blatantly, it makes you look weird. I'll sit up here and say, yeah, Take Care, great album. But he also did this weird stuff too. And if you can't acknowledge the weird stuff, to me, you're compromised. Kendrick cosplayed as Jesus, and then instead of promoting the actual Bible, he promoted Eckhart Tolle's version of the Bible. who uses Jesus for some sort of new age self-help kind of thing. And it can be helpful, but it ain't scripture. You got to watch all of them. It's funny. He was talking about culture, and how elitists look down on artists like Young Thug and Future. But when you're really part of it, you understand Young Thug and Future were also part of the nonsense too, promoting death, violence, and ignorance. Future would get on his song and promote some of the worst things ever and then go chill in his house like a normal citizen. So I'm not going to keep harping on this because, you know, the show's ending, but I really think that those of us who are part of this thing, those of us who really care about hip hop, black culture, humanity, equality, politics, any of this stuff, go to the source, man. If you really care about hip hop, study the elements. If you really care about black culture, study the elements, and don't let these loud anti-intellectual voices throw you off, because that's what's happening, man. Shout out to Wiz and Currency for really dropping music. I hope Dirk changes his opinion. J. Cole, I'm going to be tuning into his other music, but I definitely think that J. Cole, Drake, and a couple other people are controlled. Oh, one last little funny thing that I noticed. Drake and Kendrick, the way that their beef started, or what accelerated it, was because Drake went to Big Boy's radio show, and after the Control verse, he said, man, I don't want to work with bro anymore. That's what he said. That interview has since been wiped from the internet. You cannot find it. I, of course, have a copy because I'm neurotic and a bit obsessive. Someone is deleting hip-hop history, gang. Someone is deleting. The culture is under attack. Calling all artists. I don't care if you wrote a song in high school. If you know what it's like to have love for the culture, if you know what it's like to know black history, if you know what it's like to understand the nature of colonization, if you have knowledge and wisdom and understanding, we need you. We need you. We need you to speak up. If you're a hip hop historian and you know how things got started, we need you to speak up, because the culture is under attack. And apparently, people are asking for a new Cheeseball. I need Cheeseball and new album, please. People are asking for Cheeseball. I don't know who that is. I don't know who Cheeseball is. We'll do one more topic and a music break, and then we'll wrap the show up. There's no way. I have months worth of topics on here, so I'm just picking and choosing. So I have something to listen to while I'm driving around. We covered Dirk. We covered Dexter versus Courage. We covered Cheese. We covered J. Cole being a fraud and critics versus artists. We covered Kendrick, sort of predicting that these people would expose themselves. Mark Echo, Final Fantasy art. The origin of DJ Screw's name, a little bit of hip hop history. That's always good, right? DJ Screw, legend. How'd he get his name? Back then, whenever he didn't like a record, he would take a screw and scratch the record to mess it up so no one could play it. His friends used to laugh whenever he did it and said, "You think you're DJ Screw or something?" He liked it, so he kept the name. A little bit of hip-hop history to end the show. I would be remiss. We have to cover my personal elements, which is gaming as well. New game is on the way. I used to watch like stick fighting videos when I was a kid. And this is footage from a new game that is supposedly in the works that looks pretty crazy. I don't want to play sound because I don't want to get copywritten. From music to the arts to other things, we're living in an amazing time where we can create the music, the games, whatever that we want to play, and sell them directly to customers without having to find an expensive middleman. So salute. This is BP Dev Fawad. Salute to you if this is your game. It looks great. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to go to a music break. Shout out to the gas stations. Here, let's get some music going. What's one? What's a good one? You know, it's crazy. This stash, a lot of this stuff, is not out, honestly. Let's see. I made a beat. Here, let's do the Lighthouse. I was listening to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Plane to the lighthouse, enough food for the month, plus a couple ounces. We gon' chill here for a while I write the album. Hearing voices from below, like the underground. Was in the office miserable, I just wanted out. Seemed like no one understood what I was talking about. Had 2 women ask for marriage, had to tuck a smile. Run from saying sorry, how can I trust you walking down the aisle? The rap game, it's been changing, it's kinda wild. The fake Christ stole the light from a bunch of aisles. She hit my IG and she wonder when I'm coming round. Acting like I'm Kris Kringle when I come to town. Haven't slept on double G cups in a while. Double D's and these E's, it's okay for now. I hate the ones who say they love me, try to take.
Of course that happened.
Me down. Honestly, some nights it's tough believing that we made it out. Plane to the lighthouse.
Man, what do I want for breakfast?
To the plane to the lighthouse.
I need a
We gon' shine when it's light out.
I need a charger for my phone too.
We gon' shine when the lights out.
This has been the Undrground Podcast. I am your host, Nave Noblique. This is my music, written by me. Not produced by me, but definitely written.
How you drop a whole album, don't talk about nothing decent. It's just money and women you paying to try to sleep with. It's crazy how people switch up, they trading quick as AD from the Lakers. It's crazy how they be saying they knowin' Jesus. Rappers is narcissistic, it's always about them. Bragging about dogging a chick, next song you calling a twin. America blocked TikTok, really thought it was it. They saying shout out to Trump when we logging in the garden. The snake you play with emotions like violence. My homegirl, she was froze when she thought what her father did. I told her stay in the moment, just focus on locking in. She beautiful, but she struggled with problems with loving men. Sometimes she wanna destroy all of us and be done with it. I'm thumbing through text, hoping this bag I don't fumble it. I had $21 and flipped it to 160. You texting me, come and get me. I'm off in another city, I know.
All right, I am gonna go get breakfast. Some freaking bacon and eggs with the runny yolk. Sausage gravy. I'm trying out Campbell's sausage gravy. Write some more raps, find some more topics, and we will be back. I might like once a month for these things. But we'll see. We'll see. I hope everyone's having a good day. Thank you if you're tuning in. If you're fighting a silent battle nobody knows about, you know about it. God knows about it. And you're tougher than you think, man. You're tougher than you think. Peace and love. Peace and love.